Yo, what is good, y'all? Um, welcome. Today is a stream. Go figure. All right. Here is the game plan. I am going to design a brand new VTuber from scratch, and we're going to go through the entire process from start to finish, from I have one singular idea all the way until it's a finished model. And we're going to cut it all together, and you guys are going to see the entire process. And it's sort of going to work as a pseudo tutorial because, well, I want to go over how it works. So I hope everybody's ready for that. Okay. So, here is my blank canvas. I will note I have two things on it. First, my very first idea, because this is going to start from the design portion, which means that it's going to start at the very, very beginning. Meaning, all I have is an idea, which is I'm going to make a fox person, probably a fox girl. And the reason for this is because I want to show you how you can take something that is normal and put your own twist on it and make it interesting. So there's a million fox girls out there, right? And we're going to try and see what we can do to spice up the design and make it maybe memorable and visually distinct. Because number one thing you should do when you're starting out making your own VTuber model, you want to say, all right, well, what do I want to be? And then you need to come up with an idea for it. So if you're saying, oh, I want to be a fox girl, well, first thing you do is you say, oh, well, what kind of fox? See, this fox here is one that I just looked up online, breeds of fox, like different kinds of foxes. And this is a silver fox. And they're sort of underrepresented amongst a lot of the fox girls. So I was like, okay, so we'll grab a picture of that and we'll probably make a silver fox. Makes it easy. And then I was thinking, okay, so there's still a bunch of fox girls. What can we do to take it to the next level? Step one, we're going to add something else to the design. I chose a sunflower. So the biggest thing I think is super underrepresented in the entire VTubing space right now is plants. We have a million of every different animal. If you want to stand out and be different, do something related to a plant. There's a lot fewer plants than there are animals. Because it's like, oh, what's the what's the cat girl VTuber, or what's the fox, wolf, what's the demon, whenever I said that, a name probably popped into your head or basically a VTuber. But when you ask yourself, okay, well, who's the rose VTuber? Who's the sunflower VTuber? Who's the vineyard VTuber? Those are not nearly as prominent and prevalent. So a good way to make your design stand out is to just use something that's underrepresented. Here being plants. So either if you want to be like a plant person where you're like, oh, I'm the human, I'm a flower turned human, or you want to mix it like I'm about to here, where it's like, okay, I'm going to do fox, sunflower, and we're going to mix those together. Then that is an absolutely great way to come up with a killer design. So that's the idea today. And in order to make this relatively quick, I don't want to, because this isn't a commission or anything. I'm just trying to go through a process for practice and cement the skills for myself after I just made this model that you're seeing now. And I also want to basically practice, just really nail everything down and make sure that I kind of have the entire process thought out. And I figured I'd make it all on stream and then edit it into a video so you can all see the entire process. So without further ado, what we can do is move these up to the corner. So this is our idea. And in order to not eat up the rest of my life while making this, it is not going to be a full body VTuber. And I thought, oh, speaking of clever ideas, here's another part of that could help with this. So if I'm going to make it a half body VTuber anyway, and I'm doing something plant related, what I can do is I can just take something very well known from plants and add it in. It can be a waist up potted plant VTuber. So I'm not going to be drawing the full body. It'll be waist up, but the bottom will be a plant. So it's not just waist up and it's just nothingness down there. So it actually works design-wise as well. So that's going to be the plan. For starters, what we would do is we would just get like a general body shape going. Because we just want to get a rough idea of design going. And then if it's going to be waist up, we'll probably cut it here. Maybe have the pot go around, something like that. And we can obviously make the pot a lot more interesting at another point in the future. But we just get a basic gestured body temp. Basically, this is a body template down. And because we just need a general body shape so that we can kind of design on top of it. Whoop. And we'll just fudge the hands and arms. What the fuck are these arms? Hold on. Sorry, I know it's just supposed to be the template, but these arms are going to bother me. But to be fair, spending a little bit of extra time on the template is still a good idea, because everything you build onto, one of the biggest things about art and design in particular, you want to make your foundation as strong and stable as possible, so that you have a lot more things you can do on top of it. So, arms go out. Unfortunate day, or I'm having difficulty drawing, but it'll be fine. And then just general arm shapes. Just to be fair, we technically don't know the titty size, at least as of right now. So we'll just leave it very vague and gestured. And yeah, we'll just fudge the hands because we're not going to be putting too much detail probably in the hands, at least not right now. Because while the hands are very important, and it's one of the things that are going to be seen the most, as far as like what people's eyes dart to, for especially a half body up VTuber, the thing that's going to be the most important is just kind of the face. So we've got a general idea here of base that we can draw from. We're going to make that lower opacity. We're going to make it bigger so that we can sit with it here. Now, actually probably not that big, because a character like this is likely to have probably fairly large ears. Oh, not skew. So we want to make sure we leave room above the head. What is, Krita, what is your problem? There we go. So you want to make sure you leave room. So then to start, what we can kind of do is just figure out exactly what we want to do. So we will look up fox girls. What is the most common thing about fox girls that happens? Here we open it up. Make sure, oh god, I just realized, okay, safe search is on. Whew. So the most common thing looks to be, well, definitely the ears. A lot of the two-tone stuff. Yeah. So it's pretty simple to just make long hair and then do some ears, and then that seems like it'll be simple enough. So fox ears are generally this shape, because they're a bit different from cat ears, because most people draw cat ears as just kind of like that, but fox ears have a lot more of like a taper to them. So you would sort of let them have a lot more of that taper. And then most people draw extra floof in the fox ear, so that's what we would do. Now we would also do something like a fox tail. I don't know why I decided to separate that and make it look bad. So you can do a fox tail. Now the pro tip here on this design portion is you got something that would move, right? A tail. So having a tail move is a very quick and easy way to make the designs feel alive. So you want to make sure that you're adding things like that. So even though this character is only a waist up, you're making sure that the tail is back there, because it's going to look like that. Alright, so it's going to have a tail, and then pretty much all foxes have the little color change at the tip of the tail. That's sort of one of the things that makes a fox a fox. And then the other thing we can do is we can take from the sunflower. So what do we want to take from it? We could just take the color palette, where it's a very yellow and green and black color palette. That's a really easy way to go ahead and just steal from it. But I want to incorporate a lot more of the design aspects of it, especially if the character is in a potted plant. So we could have vines all completely adorning them as part of their clothing. We could have them growing out of it, where they kind of got like roots that go up. They're like that. We can have seeds be part of it. Like we can give them, some of them, like fingernails that sort of look like the seeds. We can do all kinds of things to try and incorporate this design in. So I think that's most of what I want to do. I think I want the individual creature to be a lot more fox-like. And then I think I want to add a lot more of the features on top of it from the sunflower. So it's going to be a fox girl that is sunflower-esque, or sunflower in features, that is part sunflower, basically. Now, the easiest thing I've found, as you can probably see on my own model, is I absolutely love to do this for these types of designs. This is absolutely delightful, especially because, so the eyeball, which is something you want to really pop, because it's the window into the soul. It's what you look at, and your VTuber is going to feel alive or not based on it. So what you could do is just take this entire shape here and just stick it in the eyeball. That's literally what I did with mine, because it's just visually distinct. It creates an interesting look, and it's just really cool, and it really cements the design as more than just wearing things that are sunflower, right? So you would take the eyeball and you would make it this sunflower, and it would be bright yellow with the black, large black center. You'd probably give it the little stippling. So we'll probably end up doing that as well. That's the easiest way to really make it distinctly, oh, I am both of these things. And since the eyes, you really want them to be detailed anyway, you could just do like the typical thing where you just like, oh, add shapes and like extra sparkles and this, but like adding an extra, like this entire shape, I think at least, makes it a lot more visually appealing. So we're gonna put those fox features on, and then we just kind of figure out how we want it to look. So for a fox girl, we're obviously gonna want certain eye shapes. So like something like the super round and bouncy eye is probably not something we would want, unless we leaned more into the sunflower side. So it could theoretically work because of the fusion we're going for, but most fox do basically the cat eye. Not like literal cat, but in makeup it's called the cat eye, where you have this little big pointy offshoot. Most like feline or those types will have this more angled and like makeup heavy looking eyeball. And this is the shape mostly associated with things like fox girls. So depending on whether you want to read as more like, oh yes, I am a fox girl, so you want to use it, or if you want to stand out amongst other fox girls, you would use the round eyes. I personally think I'm just going to go with, yep, we're a fox girl. We're going to go with the thin, slim, sexy eye. So I don't think we want the big round. We'll use these types of eyes. And then obviously, if you are a fox person, you're going to have little fangies. So your teeth are going to be like normal teeth, except you're going to have your cute little fangs, right? And yes, even on your little bottom teeth, you're going to have your fangs because you are a beast. And it also looks really cute. So that's what you're going to have. And you're probably going to want some kind of lipstick. So for the actual lipstick, what it'll end up being sort of depends on what color you want. Because you can go nuts on it, but I generally prefer a lot more of like a subtle lipstick, especially in an anime style. In an anime style. So, yeah, I don't think we'll probably make it be the bright yellow. We might have it be green, because that might be cute. But we'll see, because a lot of the palette is sort of going to be color picked, because spoilers for those of you who are tuning in the first time, I'm actually colorblind. So I generally like to color pick most of the time. But sometimes I know I can make small adjustments. Like that is just more yellow, which is what we'd be wanting. We can go ahead and do some green. We've got like the dark colors like these seeds, as well as the just pretty much the black of the inner of the sunflower. So this could be used down here. We'll see what we want to do with the pot. We'll go down and we'll spice up each individual part as we go. And then we have the silver fox, who is mostly like monocolored and or desaturated. So there's a little bit of brown in the tail with your classic like white tip. And then there's a lot more silvery, looks like blue silvery on top. So that's sort of what we're looking like color-wise that we're taking from everything. Brown could be a natural lip color. That's true. That could be one we give it a shot. And then I'm just going to color pick this guy's little eyes, just so that we have an idea of where that color is. Because see, now this is actually something that almost ended up perfect. Because you'll notice, so this guy's eyes are about this color. And when I took from this, it ended up being this color, which is relatively close. So actually turning this guy's eyes into like the bright yellow sunflower eyes is actually not going to be too far off from the reference picture we took. So it's also going to feel a lot more natural using the actual color palettes. But now we may move onward. We'll just leave that up. Probably merge this down. And we'll make a new layer. So on top of this, what we'll do is we will sort of just start getting to work with a rough idea of what we want. So we would kind of just get in our little anime eyes. Don't know why I redrew them. I literally just have them over here. I could have moved, but We'll do something like that. Make sure they're nice and big, because they're anime eyes. And that's what they do. Now for the nose on a VTuber, most of the time, you'll find yourself making it a lot easier on the rigger and anyone else if you actually just go for a very simple nose, like just the shadow underneath the bottom, or like just the line, that kind of a thing. It will make it so much easier on you in the long run. And then we'll just do some simple lips. And then this is going to be shaded whatever color we end up going with for that. So we'll give it a little bit of that. All right, and then we have her ears up here. So we could do the weird double ear thing, or she doesn't have ears on the side. Meaning we'll want to pick a haircut that uses this area. Because if we don't, then this will just look weird and uncanny. So that means that we're going to have bangs that frame the face. So the easiest way is to just take some of them spikies and put it down there like that. And then that's bangs that frame the face. So bam, we've already got sort of what our face is going to look like. So you can see a rough idea of how it's looking. And then this will sort of interweave with the top hair through the ears and whatever we end up choosing for the bangs. So what do we want to do for the bangs? Well, if we went with this sort of semi-spiky frames, we won't want to do a flat top unless we want to contrast with that. Howdy, welcome. So what we could do is just more of the same, where we just do more of the spikies. And then so this, we've kind of got our bangs in here. And then so like this is a very simple and easy way to frame the face of what we're looking at. Now here we can also make a quick decision. Do we want to have long hair? Well, most of the time you would say yes, but we could sort of lean into the sunflowerness where it's sort of got actually really short petals in comparison to the whole flower. So what you could do is just leave it short and maybe just sort of, you know, have it flare out or something if you wanted to get more of like similar to the sunflower look. But you probably don't want it to flare out too much, since that'll be leaving us away from the fox design and more towards maybe a lion or a cat, right? So one idea would be sort of just subtle, where in the back it sort of continues down with the bangs. But I think when I was looking at it, I think I actually did like the way it looked when you just went straight down. So that's super quick and easy. You just go straight down, you got simple hair, and it's on there. All right, and then now is when you ask yourself the question, do you want small titoli or tiggle bitties? To answer the question, did I ever consider the foxtail plant? Yes, but I'm very specifically trying to merge two things that are not necessarily related, mostly just to show how to combine those types of things. So I'm thinking we'll probably give her like pretty reasonable titty. Because titty physics is sort of like one of those things where a character that has it is going to be a lot more interesting generally, at least on a visual standpoint, because big titties are usually animated. So whenever they're animated or rigged with physics, it makes it more, visually appealing. You can see it moving. So we'll give her some titty. Mostly, it doesn't have. They don't have to be like the massive, like milkers that you'd see on like, I don't know, just whatever anime backbreaker this season brought in. But just big enough that like the animator or rigger can do something with them and make them move. Okay, so then she's got titties. Let me take it down. And then what do we want to do? So right now we've got a lot of fox and not too much of the sunflower so far. But what we're going to do next is probably start adding clothing. And what kind of clothing is going to dictate a lot of what happens next. So let's see. Big buns on her hair that look like sunflowers. Yes, that is one of the ideas that we can toss around. Wide brim sun hat. The problem with that one is that we'd have to make sure to find a good angle to draw it so that her ears can still poke through, because we still want it to be obvious that those ears are there. But like a big sun hat is a good idea. But first, you could do something really simple. So let's make a new layer. Or you can take like, I don't actually remember how sundresses look. But you can just do something simple that just does this. No, actually I just remembered sundress probably wouldn't do too well considering she's in a plant. She's not going to have a lower half because we ain't going to work on that. But we can try and figure out how we're going to combine her and make her. We can just do sort of the vines or censorship using the leaves. I think she have a neck flume of fur that could be petals. That's another great idea. So if we wanted to give her a lot more of like that fur, so let's actually give that one a full thought and go through. So what you would do if you wanted to give her like the big furry like neck collar basically is you would do something like this. But if we were to take that idea all the way through and make them sort of the petals, then that could be really, really good. So you would sort of take the same shapes and then you would create these little avenues where the petals are poking through. And that sort of also helps it read as a lot more plant-like. Because that is actually a very good point. Because to be fair, a lot of Fox characters also seem to have the fuzzy bits and or neck rings somewhere. And if we wanted to take this and say, okay, I think that looks good, let's keep at it. So then we would give her more of those rings elsewhere. And it would add an interesting movement. Yes, that's exactly what I was saying. So actually, I'll quickly touch on that real quick. So when I say, when you're making a VTuber, you want to add those things that dangle and move and animate even when the character's not. For example, so if you look at mine, you may notice that these bells are swinging even if I'm not moving sometimes. And that's doing what we call sympathetic movement. This is a very big term in like the puppet industry. That's why Big Bird has a lot of feathers and those two on top of his head that move even when he's not, and why a lot of them are fuzzy or have long hair or feathers or something, so that even when they are done moving, something else is. It gives the illusion of life. So when you're designing a character, things that can move, in VTubing, we generally use it to add like physics, aka things that will move in accordance with the way you move. And those are sympathetic movement. It's like a breathing animation. It gives your thing life, and so you want to make sure that you have at least a couple of those on different parts of your model. So for this, the neck could move around and it adds more, it's sort of like an extra bit of the hair physics. So that's what we would do. And we would take this motif and we would continue it onward. So for example, we could give her wrist cuffs in the same method. Although now that I think about it, I think the wrist cuffs might actually make her look a bit too much like maybe a fairy. Just because I think, was it like the Tinkerbell fairies or something, kind of have that look? I don't remember. Didn't know it was puppet terminology. Well, technically, I think it's just animation terminology, but the place I hear it most used is people who make puppets and people who use it in like the puppeteering. So I don't know if animation just co-opted the term or if puppets came up with it or vice versa. All I know is the place that I hear it the most often, as far as sympathetic movement specifically, is in the puppet industry. So then, bam, and now we've also done two things. We've made the neck area and the wrists a lot more visually interesting. So this helps us with the design, and it creates an extra running motif. Now, with this neck thing here, the long straight down hair, I don't think works anymore. So we would take this and we would rearrange it. So one of the things that was suggested earlier was actually giving her flower-shaped buns, which is actually a grand idea. So that is something that would be really perfect now that we have this neck color here making this space visually interesting. We wouldn't want to add too much around it to make it feel cluttered. But since she's going to have ears on top, sort of a framed face, a fluffy neck, what we could do is something on the sides here where the normal ears would be and make those the buns. So that is just what we'll do next. So we could just simply do the sloppy bun to sort of evoke that flowery shape, where it's a bun that just sort of has all these strands poking out. I think the fairies in Fern Gully had the wrist cuffs. Yeah, see, that's what I was thinking. I swear there was some kind of fairy that had that type of wrist thing. So then we just added messy buns. Now, I think this actually probably is going to clash too much with the ears, and especially the way the ears are fuzzy. So it's going to become too busy and too pointy here, which is going to ruin our silhouette. So the silhouette is just, if you were to only take the outline of something, would it be visually distinct? Could you tell what it is? And is it like unique and different from other things? So for that, what we could do is remove the messy bits so that it's not clashing too much. And this creates these little bumps on the side. In order to make the buns more interesting, we could add sort of a braided look, so that they're kind of like braided buns or something like that, to make them more visually interesting and distinct from like the bangs that are here on the side framing the face. But the easiest thing to do, let me just pull it back up, is if we just Google cool looking hair buns. What we can do is just look up some buns. Oh, I should probably put twin hair buns, because we're looking for the double-sided. So it looks like a lot of it has to do with the back side of the head, which we're not going to see too much of. The messy buns, we decided we didn't really want too much, but maybe we just didn't want it to be spiky. Something we could do is it could be messy, but very rounded. And that way the pointy spikes up here on the ears can still remain distinct and not too busy, as long as these sort of protrusions and messiness on the buns are a lot more rounded. And that can maybe help it still look fairly distinct. And a little bit off of what we were talking about. That almost actually gives this like a ringed planet look. You know how you like your Saturn and that kind of stuff? It almost can give it sort of that look, but we're not going to probably mash too much into this particular design. So here, a twin bun trend of having hoops and such around the buns. That could be a good idea. Doing something... So, to be fair, because this is all just, you know, we're just spitballing, we're just coming up with stuff, we're just winging it, right? So what we could do is we could duplicate this, and then erase these buns. And we can sort of say, all right, well, what if we wanted to do, for example, that ringed bun? Right, something like that. Okay, well, that kind of almost looks like she's going to wear headphones. Or we could also make it so instead of having just messy buns, she could have maybe pointed down here, and then she could have sort of a couple of things sticking out of them, and maybe like little decorations or jewelry or something of that type. That is maybe sticking off. And then if we were to take this and then put little like maybe hoops or rings on that, that could help create more sympathetic movement. Or, let's see. Yeah, because so if we put little hoop sticks out of that, I don't think I like them pointing up. So maybe if they were out, maybe not. So I don't think I quite like the sticking things out too much from it, but can still do. So this is like the over jewelried idea, which I think might just be maybe a slightly weaker version of the rounded messy bun. We'll see. Well, we'll keep it around. We won't delete the layer that has it on it, but we will keep on moving. So now that we have this sort of cuff, the question becomes: do we want to find a way to show any cleavage? Because there's two ways we could do that. We could either shorten the collar and open the chest, or we could open the chest down here and have something fairly risque, and that could absolutely be possible. Something along those lines, and then maybe it goes under and you've got your classic, like, the dress that reaches around to the sides, one of those types of situations. And then in order to contrast that, you can add something like just slap a giant belt on her there. Yeah, that could look pretty interesting. So that's one idea. Now, next big question. So we've filled the wrists, and we've filled the neck and the head. So I don't think we want to add too much more to those areas. Now the question comes, what do we want to do with the arms? Do we want this to be sleeveless? Do we want to add sleeves? What sort of do we want to think? So we can just try out stuff until we think something looks good. So we have a general idea of what our shapes are going to be everywhere else. So once you have several things, it's really easy to just, by process of elimination, do it, and does it look good? So if we just wanted to add sleeves and just something like that, does that look good? It doesn't look bad. But we can try something else. Did we want to try a shoulder-free sleeve look? Where maybe it goes down here like this, but her shoulders are out. Well, maybe that could look pretty good. See, that one's not a bad idea. And sort of, I guess, on that route, we could also try out, do we want to do any fishnet style stuff? Well, we can put it in, but I'm not sure it would necessarily look amazing given the color palettes and what we're going to move forward with that. Because it might clash a good bit with the amount of look. Because we're not necessarily going for like a punk style here. So for fashion style, we're probably going to go for fairly simple. Like if I remove this top, and we go for something really simple where it's just like this. There is no cleavage. And we have exposed shoulders. And then maybe this can go all the way down to the hand. Or something somewhere like that. Then that still looks pretty reasonable. And we have room to play down here for a little bit. Because we've put the belt here, which is a great dividing line. Meaning anything we put below the belt can be whatever we want. Because we have divided the top using the belt. So it could just be there's a seam there. Farm girl, we could go farm girl. So if we wanted to, for example, play out farm girl, what we could do is we could actually just go straight for like homework farm girl and go for a overalls look, which is fairly standard, which could have like a t-shirt. Well, she kind of just looks like a Mario bro with that one. We'll give her something else a little bit more interesting, maybe rolled up sleeves on a flannel. And then there would be no collar on it because of the neck bit. And then so this could be something fairly farm girly. And that is like a total option. It sort of depends on however you want it to look. So then there's also a couple of, well, just the overalls. Well, that's probably a bit too risque to actually use on any websites if the characters only were using that. But I mean, VTubers have gotten away with more, so you could also do that. Or you could also just do the classic like Daisy Duke farm girl look, which is the going over like this, and then you can just see a lot of titty. And then I believe she still usually has the long sleeves that you would make, you know, plaid. And then that is another option. So if we wanted to keep going down the farm girl route, and then you would give her probably high-waisted, like, jean types. So that's another idea you can go for. Could also go with, so this is actually an interesting idea. So oftentimes there's sort of the weaving of like baskets and that type of a look. I know we're going to actually have like her in a straight pot, but we don't necessarily need to have it be a woven basket or anything. So something else we could try is actually just going for like that weave look. So it would sort of be one of these. You go across and down. and you would do this type of a thing. Or it would sort of be this woven dress looking thing. You could do it sort of all around however you want. But that's another idea. I'm not sure I'm crazy about how it looks here. It's possible that it could be fixed with other looks. But that could also theoretically open up more room for cleavage again. Where you got them revealed titty. Not sure I'm crazy about that one, so we might just leave that one in the dust. Unless I want to add it to this one. Sort of step this one down along the side. Okay. Something along these lines. And then contrast it with maybe straight lines, or even maybe just a little pattern. Just something to eat up the space of here on this side. So that's not terrible either. See, because I'm a little bit hesitant to go directly into the farmer look. Because I wonder if, because it's almost too obvious, right? Oh, you know, we're going to take a fox girl and we're going to add a plant, therefore farm girl. Which is like, okay, that's fair. So it's sort of, this is one of the things where you'd be making the decision because it would be iconic, right? Because there's a deep association there. And then so you could feed into that, or you could try to, and sort of that could make you more recognizable, or like, oh yeah, that's the farm girl because she's a sunflower type of a thing. Or you could fight against it to try and stand out a bit more. So it could really go either way. But I think given that this one's not going to be, I think it might still be a good idea to do it. Mostly just because this is not going to be a full body design. See, if it was full body, I would probably go with like a dress, either like this or like a sundress. Because like a sundress would also work really good. But since this one's a half body up, I think the idea to go for farmer is probably the best way to go. So what we would do is decide, do we want like overalls, the Daisy Dukes, or what? Something else we could do is explore different kinds of like overall style. So I know it was mentioned briefly about the nothing underneath overalls, which is possible. We could just do that. But I wonder if that one's just like a little bit too obvious where people are like, oh, that's pandering kind of a thing. But it's worth playing out. Where is... There it is. And see, the other problem that comes with not wearing anything underneath the overalls is what do you do on these sides here? Like, what do you do for her arms? Because she has to have something on her arms, otherwise they're just too plain and uninteresting. So whether, I mean, we could give her tattoos, for example. That could be one way to overcome something like this where you're like, oh, I don't want to do it with clothing. So then you give her tattoos. So you can give her like plant-themed tattoos or something along those lines. And, you know, that's one way to make it all interesting. So give her, you know, tattoo sleeves or something like that. I mean, even making it like, so she's got gloves on over the, well, no, I don't think the gloves is going to be as easy, just because we have these little wrist cuffs. So I think maybe if we did, so no shirt, overalls, into tattooed arms, that could be one way. Because we're basically just giving her something visually interesting. Because anytime there is like a gap of space in your design, like what we had on the arms there, you want to fill it with something. Whether it's a lot, whether it's a little, or where it's just a little bit of a medium amount of something is completely dependent on the feel you're going for. So for this, since we're going with overalls and we've got this big collar, I think filling this with just something medium is going to fit well, because everything is sort of on mediums right now. Like, these are not enormous. The overalls are not, you know, too big. The neck collar is big, but it could be way bigger. The buns are not massive. The ears are not massive. So pretty much everything is sitting on mediums right now. The biggest thing is probably this neck collar. So if we want it to stand out, having one large thing and a bunch of either medium or small things really makes the large thing stand out. So if we wanted to like make the collar even bigger with the no overalls, that would sort of make it stand out larger as like a big chunk of the design. So because we've got small this, you know, small to medium tattoos, a big block of not very much detail here in the overalls. So then that leaves us with this to become big chunk. And then we've got, you know, smallish buns, small ears, and a normal face. So that is one idea. Let's check through what we're looking at. So the vine dress idea, let me take that through a little bit more. So something I could do is maybe vine/roots creeping up the arms a bit more. That creates a little bit more visual interest. Okay, and then we would have vines creeping up at the bottom as well. Where this is sort of the roots that take a hold and or form her. Right, so we've got those also making moves up. We would probably decrease, maybe not decrease that. If we were to have this weird patterned dress, be something along these lines. Now, the other big thing to note, while we're here in the design phase, a lot of what we're doing is we're just kind of spitballing. We're not going in, we're not making things too detailed, because now's not the time for that. We'll figure that out and we'll make each individual piece a lot more interesting after the fact. So I think this, taking this idea of like the vine stuff a bit more, we can clear out from here. And we would redo a dress with the the idea of like a more natural, like fiber-based design. So we've got these roots coming up from the wrists and the pot. We've got the petals around the neck. So what could go in the middle? So we have vines and roots at the bottom. We've got petals at the top. Well, we could just, there we go, and we use leaves. So if we use like a leaf style, so we're not going to make it like literal leaves, but like leaf patterns and leaf shapes maybe. We can do something a little bit interesting. So if we just repeat the pattern, and do something like this. Something along these lines, and then maybe we just create a pattern. Not sure I like those squiggles. Well, since a lot of this is actually curved lines, we can help it with the pattern by contrasting it with some straighter lines. So if they're straight vertical, it looks visually interesting, but not necessarily perfect. We could continue on sort of the horizontal look. But I think giving it diagonals might make it pop just a bit more. So if it was like, for example, something like diagonal stripes, might need to be larger. So I think what we're having here is a big, medium, small issue. So this is, see, this leaf here is a big shape, but I've broken it into a bunch of smaller shapes by creating this, by using this little leaf pattern here. So what was big is now a bunch of small, and then we've got like a couple of mediums here. So instead of having a bunch of small here because they're small here, it'd be better to leave them as large chunks. So like there's a medium shape, a medium shape, a medium shape, and then now this is like one large shape. So that gives your eyes a place where they can rest. So that's another important part of design. So we could have these be like this, or we could also break them up a bit. See, this doesn't actually divide them into smaller shapes. It just creates a little bit of visual interest. We could also do something to the top ones here. And just, if you wanted to do something like that. See, design-wise, this broke this up into a bit more like medium pieces instead of small pieces. So that means you could have theoretic freedom to do something like a bunch of the small lines down here, and it wouldn't look nearly as jarring or busy as it did before. But I think it almost looked a bit better to evoke these smaller details up here on these top guys. And then leaving this like this, with this being a large chunk, and then maybe it just needs one divider. Actually, no, I don't think it does. I think what it needs, because the vines are also going to be fairly busy, because this is a bunch of like, you know, a bunch of smalls, and then we've got like a bunch, some small slash mediums, and then we've got a bunch of smalls up top. So leaving these as relatively plain is a good idea. Maybe we'll just use like a little a little light pattern that is not very busy. Might do something like that, or just maybe like one large stripe is something that could look pretty okay. But this still leaves a little bit of blank area here, which is not a bad idea considering. So if we're making this part busy, leaving this part a little bit blanker is not bad. Again, like the large swaths of nothing, allow your eyes to rest from all the crazy busy stuff going on there. But I think you might want a little something just because this might be a little bit too big. So you could do the ultimate classic of just add a belt. That's a real simple one. That's easy. We could bring the tattoo idea back where it's just like a smaller tattoo. So it could actually just be like a literal sunflower tattoo or something like that. And just a little something to maybe add to the design. So just like a couple of little small tattoos. That's another option. And then we still have the idea where we could do sleeves. So another not bad idea would be something coming from the top there. That could come down and divide this a little bit more. Could keep it a little bit busier, but if we make this, because since we're running with a bit of the trend of the all medium, we could go back to the trying to make this a little bit more medium shaped. And something along those lines, and then, you know, the arms serve as big rest points that you can see. So I don't think the Daisy Dukes are going to happen. I think the no overalls tattoos doesn't look bad. I think it looks better than the super generic flannel with overalls. This dress looks fine, but I still think it's a little bit too... This is sort of like a formal fancy wear that you would probably only use on a full model. So I think it's between those two. So... does this function exist? Is there a stamp function in Krita? That's a good question. Layer. New. Alright, well, I will just do it manually. So, next question is, now that we have a better idea of the overall design look, we can sort of think about which one we want to run with first. We merge. Turn that off. Oh, actually, I should move it to the other side. That'll be better. Okay, and then we take, what's the other one? This one. So now I guess we'll ask the chat a question. Which one of these two do you guys think looks better? And if you want to say why, please feel free. Then actually, real quick, I might as well do a little bit of the palette show while you guys talk about it so that we can show a bit of what the colors would look like. We do something like that, probably bright yellowish hair and ears. Maybe a bit more on the green side. We could do yellow here too. That's the petals. Do a lot of the green. Right, and then the tail. Would probably be maybe not bright yellow, but we're just doing a rough palette idea here. Okay. Plant clothes look fun. It looks like they might also have a secret mouth. Actually, it does kind of look like they might have a belly mouth, which could be interesting. And maybe, you know, just something like this. Just a very rough idea of palette. Shoot, what's a quick skin tone? Something quick that's not crazy. Let's make her white. Because I am white, and I'll just draw what I know. Alright, Pedro is right about Fox Sister. Let me make sure. So, this is like an idea. If we wanted to make the eyes yellow like the sunflowers. Oh, I did not color her face. We might end up shifting the color of the hair. So if we want to have the petals be like this is a little bit too much yellow. It's a great motif to have. You're going to have the yellow cuffs, yellow mane, yellow eyes. So that's where we would probably pull a bit from the fox. And then maybe the hair is actually a little bit grayer and dark. Thus also making the ears a bit more like that. Now for the overalls, I think that means we would probably change it into a lighter color of just like the blue. Lean into the silver aspect of like the silver fox. So it'd be something along these lines. With the white tail. That's one idea. Which means we would make this probably something like that. So these are some rough idea. It's a lot bigger of the yellow collar here. If we just take some of the green for maybe the green lipstick, some of the green for the tattoo. Then we'd probably also stick the roots. Coming up here, maybe? Yeah, we'll probably have the roots up on both. I don't know, what are you guys thinking? Either one of these look better. I could also just do it where it's the yellow tips. Or the fuzzies are the yellow bits. I don't think that looks that good. And then we'll have a giant block of color for the bottom bit. So for whatever this is, it'll most likely be one giant block of color. Oh, Krita, don't crash on me. Okay, thank you. So it may not be this color, but I think it probably will end up being a darker color. If it's just a lighter color, then it just won't stand out enough, I don't think. Yeah, I think it's better for the base to be a darker color. So looking at them, all right, so now here's a pro tip. If you are trying to look at the designs, and obviously everything here is really rough, right? Pro tip is to just squint your eyes, or do like the, like, you know when you were a kid and you would stick your, like, hands up to your eyes like they were binoculars. You know, do something like that and squint and make your eyes blur about it, so you can kind of tell the general silhouette and designs from afar. So you can also just scroll out and see how it looks. So when I scroll out, the one on the left is a lot more obvious. So the one on the left is a lot more obviously sort of what it is. And then, you know, when I'm close up, let me move it in here. If I squint, so the one that pops the most is still the one on the left, but that could just be because of the large swath of green, as opposed to this sort of being a little bit of a darker color there, a little bit of a darker color there. So what we'll do is we'll check to see if going for a lighter color will affect that at all. So if we go back to a dark top with the lighter middle, how does that look? So it still doesn't quite stand out as much. Just keep eyeballing it, keep figuring out what we want. So I think if we are going to do this sort of leaf dress, what we would want is probably a gradient of some kind. to make it a little less one giant block of color. It's going to be visually interesting, so we don't want to add too many like different colors, but we can do something like that. So what else? We could also sort of make this a different color as well, and then we'll keep the green tentacles. The roots coming up. And if we changed the color of that, while still leaf in pattern, it still shows up well from a distance. But bright green does look good. So I think we may go with the one on the left here. It feels like it could be a bit much, but I think as long as we design it smartly moving forward when we go into a little bit more details here, it'll be a good idea. And this is the point where I say, take a brief momentary break, stretch your hands, grab a glass of water if you don't have any. This is always important when you're drawing art and doing things that, you know, require a lot of thought, energy, all that. Take a brief moment, just chill out, relax, just let it all flow out, stretch your hands so they don't hurt, and you should be good. So this is your brief little intermission where you just should stretch your hands if you're drawing. Okay. So I think with where we've landed, we actually cut out this one here. Let me actually merge these. Well, before I do that, let me change them back to their original color. Oh, I selected both layers. That's awkward. So we'll change that back to its original and put that back to light and that back to light. And we will merge this, and this was a design that we looked at but decided not to go with for now. Okay, so now I'm going to take this and this, duplicate, merge. So now I'm going to take all these layers of us figuring all this stuff out. Going to make a new, where is it? Group. I'm going to group them all into one folder, and then I'm going to turn that folder off so we don't have to see them, and it's not making a mess of my layers, if you can see there. So all that stuff, we still have it all, so we can always go back, look, and reference again if we want. And then what we're going to do, we are going to go in and we're going to iron out some details. So we made this copy of it so we can turn it down and sort of just have a better feel for what we're going to do. So now we're going to do some like real drawing. So we wanted to do sort of the slim eyes that are generally pretty fox girl. They're a bit boxy. And then, because, hey, we're doing the actual drawing now, let's go ahead and cheat. Because that's what we want to do. Where is it? I just want to flip it horizontal. Ah, that's right. It's right here. No. Oh, that's right. This has Critter has a symmetry tool. Layer, transform, flip horizontal. We're just going to move it over. And we're going to keep this nose shape is actually pretty good because not only is it the stuff that'll save you time later in the rigging and animation portion, it also sort of evokes, so like an animal's nose, especially like a fox, a cat, or something like that, is generally like a little triangle, right? Because you got like the little nostrils, and then so that shape is sort of evoked by the bottom of a human nose. So if you just draw the bottom, it'll sort of give it that look despite actually being a human nose. And then we'll do this. And then we're going to save the lipstick for after. But we also need to make sure our sizes are going to be a lot closer. So this is actually a little wide. Well, actually, it's a lot wide. Which, to be fair, it could be a style you want to go for. I think here, in this instance, we'd rather be on the taller side of it. So you may notice, so this isn't the finished illustration, so I'm also not doing too much construction. This is still going to be rough because it's just the design. I don't need to make a full illustration if I'm just making the design that I can pass off to somebody who can make a full illustration of it, right? So while I am trying to make it look a lot more detailed so that you can at least see what everything is, I'm not worried too much about it being absolutely perfect. All right, and then you want large eyeballs, especially if you're going to have them have the sunflower shape. All right, good. And then I think these eyes are a little bit too far apart for what we're trying to do here. Oh. Yep, so that's my classic. Don't merge all your layers yet, so everything is on weird layers, and then now you merge the layers, so all the lines are on the same, and you don't have to worry about it. Alright, we're going to make the head a little bit bigger, so that it fits there just fine. Might be a little bit too big. Actually, that'll probably be fine. And then, as we're going with the fox eye, we'll make the upper eyelash a lot thicker. That'll create that sort of a look. All right, and then I'm actually going to create a new layer because we're looking for those bangs that are going to come in. So this is one way. How does that look? And always make sure you can turn off the bottom layer so you can see it a lot more clearly. So I'm not sure I'm sold on that. Let's flip that and move it over. So it would look like this, which is not terrible. I don't think that's quite the way I want the bangs to go. So we're going to try something else, which is that they are more aggressively curved. And then it would look like this. So that's not the worst, but I don't think not what I'm looking for either. So we'll take it off again. And so I think we're gonna have these strands. So it starts up there for sure. Now the question is, how do we want it to look coming down? Because one thing we could do is technically have them point out. Which, as long as they go far enough down on the sides, it doesn't really matter that they come all the way inward. As long as they sort of cover where we're looking, so that they still frame the face. See, now that doesn't look terrible either, but I will hold out judgment until we put on the rest of the hair. Because the rest of the hair, one of the things you may notice here is as we go, let me actually just briefly, so where's the head going? So that's the old noggin, huh? That looks reasonable enough for the noggin. And then hair usually starts somewhere around here. So now that we're going to be in here and ironing out a few more details, what we can do, let me actually lower this even more, so it's just the vaguest outline. And we'll lower the head a bit as well, so we can focus a lot easier on what the hair actually looks like. And so if it's at the top here, and if we have our hair pulled tight into buns, it'd be relatively close to her head all the way around. Can't draw curved lines today without making them real sloppy. That's okay. Yeah, so we'll follow the shape of the head for a good portion of that. And then we look at our buns. So we have a lot of room to play with these buns. And if we still go with our curved, messy look, be something along these lines. And then got our fox ears up here. Just let me try and get the shape a little bit better there. Actually, I think I like the way this one's shaped out. So it's going to be a lot more straight. And then curve at the bottom. That's going to sort of S here. Let's do another little S out curve there, with of course the trademark floof that is always on this type of ear. Let me move it back so they're roughly the same place on the head. Now we've got a few more of these shapes in here. Let's take another look at the bangs and sides. So if we want sort of that rough look, do something simple like that, which I think leaves too much dead space down here, unless we want that dead space open. I could add earrings up here if we need it, but we'll think about that in a bit. So if we have this all open down here, having that blank space isn't a bad thing. I'm not sold. If we keep this up, could go for a bit of a more of the straight cut here. Although I don't think I want to do the straight cut. So if I've got these flaring out, I could also have these flare out a bit here. Like this. Because they're actually an almost like Link look from what's it called? Legend of Zelda. Because Link kind of has that that bangs, that style of bangs. I'll lower the face a bit more. So this is an option. What if, so I'm going to jump offshoot here, so I'm going to copy the layer and hide the previous one. What if I do something a little bit more interesting? Which is that if these go down a lot farther, because if their hair is in buns, that could mean their hair is a lot longer, right? So that gives you freedom to just, oh, well, what if these are really long? I mean, that creates an interesting head shape, right? Because you kind of have these points going up and these points going down with all of these round bits that are sort of looping around in the middle. And then, so this bit is pointing towards those orbs and all that. So you kind of create this look that sort of draws your eye a specific way. So you could look at this as, so these are either pointing up, so your eye will follow off, but in the same way, they're also kind of pointing it inward. So you can go in there, and then it can loop around in this for a while. You can follow the trail here up there, and then it can loop around and in for a while. So I think this might be the look we want to go for. So I think the longer little sides here also gives you, speaking of, sympathetic motion. So these bangs right here have the ability to curve around and move a lot. So they can swing back and forth, side to side, and sort of, so again, see how my bells move. So those hair danglies can kind of just do that. And that's an advantage to drawing longer hair. So in addition to the buns, you know, just sort of bouncing with movement, the ears can twitch, and this can dangle like physics. So all in all, I think this is absolutely a fantastic head and face design for us to move forward with. Okay. So I think that's where we'll go with that. So now we just got to merge these all together into one line set so we can see it a lot better. So we'll merge down. We'll turn this back up, and we will erase the things that cannot be seen. then wham bam. We will now merge that with below, and this is now the head if I label my layers. Okay, so this is the head slash face we have now found in our original blocking concept. So next, we take from the head, and now we extrapolate down. So we've got the neck, and then out of the neck comes the shoulders. I suppose a little bit of structure is probably going to be helpful here with trying to draw it like this. Whoop. Create a zoom tool, still probably the worst part. Okay. So the way I like to generally block this kind of stuff out. Neck. Something along these types of lines. Next, a little small, but that's not too big of an issue. Right, and then from there, we're going to do roughly the titties. Following the rib cage down into the waist, into the hips, into the leg. Okay, so if there was a belly button, it'd probably be around there. A little bit of structuring. Oop. Just enough. Have a better idea. Okay. So generally, the rule that I like to use for necks is to just take wherever you have placed like the pupil or the eye, and if you go straight down from there, that'll generally be where the neck connects. That it's not always true, but it's often true. But since this is going to be a little bit more anime, I'm going to move in slightly in from where the center of the eye is. And obviously it's not perfectly even, but it'll be fine because we're going to cover up a lot of this stuff anyway. So we get these arms showing. Yeah, I think this head might be a little bit too big for this size of a body. Which could be a style, because what we could do is we could just leave it and say it's a style choice because flowers often have like a very large top with a smaller bit and then the big pot. But I'm not a big fan of like just overly large heads, so we might just go with like a slightly large head instead of a massively large one. Just not a fan of the way it looks usually. Okay. So next we will put in the petals. Just a moment. So I once again realized I should just be cheating. Always cheat. Because all that matters is you get what you want. It's not. Because it's not like if you cheat at art, which, to be fair, is not really a thing. If you cheat at art, quote unquote, you're not hurting anything. You're just getting what you want using a different method. Actually, so I've given her a little bit of a... She's not looking exactly straight on, so let me actually adjust the location of these based on that. She'll still be looking ahead, but this will not be exact. Something more like that, and then we'll move this. Use all the tools at your disposal. Alright, and now we turn that back on, and we're adding the neck petals, as it were. Let me add a new layer. And then we will sort of create a jagged line of sort of where we want them to start. And then because of perspective, we're going to basically create the ring around her neck where we want it to start, and then we begin. And we start with the big petals. The big ones that come out of the top. So this is the simple and easy way. We just run it down, turn off the head, and then you sort of just add smaller ones in between. So yeah, this one is bugging me. So if we redo that one. Look a lot better on that. And so those are a lot more petal-like as far as like a neck ring. And then I'm going to turn that off for the rest of the construction because it's going to be a bit obstructive for the next bits I'm going to do. Which is that we had the leaf dress, right? Yeah. So if we want to have this come up like this. So I think if we want to give this a try here, what we ought to do, not you, there we go. Because one thing that you can do with a lot of leaf design is you can sort of get away with this type of a thing, where they don't actually, so it's basically strapless, right? Where the leaves just curve up, and then this shape that they have is sort of like a natural leaf shape. So you can still pretty much gauge how it's going to look, and then you know, still have your cleavage. So something along these lines. What if I go down at this angle and then curve out? Yeah, that looks a lot better. And then we are going to connect it here with these teeth-looking leaves. So something we could do. So it was mentioned that it looks kind of like a lower mouth before. And we can lean into that by having them sort of interlock the way that teeth would. AKA moving them slightly farther to the side. And doing something along these lines here. So by offsetting them a bit, where it looks like this. And then we'll vary the size a bit. So they'll get smaller towards the edges, which means we should actually move this down and put some smaller ones near the top. We do like this. And then that is one way to get that looking pretty fine. And actually what I'm going to do, so move these over to be like this. I'm actually going to put a small shape going like this to sort of add to the shape and the possibility of this, for example, being a mouth that can open. Because if there's a separating line here, it makes it a lot easier for this to, again, quote unquote, open. And then we move this, and I believe the rest of the dress was very simple, yeah. Where it just follows down her shape. And then she has vines climbing up from the pot and soil. And bada bing. So then that's coming up just fine. And that looks pretty good. So then let's finish out the arms. We'll probably go till about, yeah, down to about there-ish. For coming out. Now, one thing we could do, we're not working on the posing or anything right now, but one thing that could be pretty easy to do moving this is to have her hands on the pot somewhere, whether it's like a pseudo, like it's kind of like the hands on your hips, but it's the hands on the pot, or it's the well, I guess the pushing your titties together with the hands on the pot and you're sort of like leaning forward. You know all that, but for now we're just going to do basic show off the character design concept, so no creative posing right now. Right. Do a quick and dirty hand, because with the way her hands are here, it doesn't look like we're going to do anything too interesting with them. And hands don't quite match at all, but that's fine. You've proportioned these arms weird. Yeah, that's what it is. So her arms are too far out. Because her shoulders are too wide. This is not all on the same layer. I did it again. Alright, now that line art is on the same layer. Okay. Move it in just a bit. Just a little smidgen. So it doesn't look like she's massively broad-shouldered. And that looks slightly better. And that'll be good enough. So, next question. So we've made this sort of strapless. What we could do is that there are straps, and that's actually what's down here. Or we could just make it completely strapless, and we could go back to the tattoo idea. I think it's better if we just put the strap like we were originally planning. What is this? Alright, that's the framework, so I don't need that anymore. So the straps were like here-ish. And it's just something super duper simple that will add a little bit of, break up the very thickly empty arm. I could do that. I could do what I was going to do again, which was another strap. Just make it look a little bit more interesting than just the singular strap. Alright, so then let's turn on the neck. So very first thing I'm noticing here. So the normal shaped neck doesn't quite work there. What if I make it wider and shorter? That looks a little bit better. I think it does look a bit better that way. So real quick, let me make sure to add in the cuffs before I forget. So once again, just like the neck, I'm going to set up the line. And then we'll go for it. Then there was also the vines going up the arm here. Right, once again. stick it on to here. And then more vines. I'll make the middle one the small one on this. Okay, so now let's back out. Head is still a bit too big here. We might give her a little bit of a longer neck just to make room. Oh, scratch my eyeball. So I think we may give her a bit of a longer neck just to help keep sure, like make sure there's still going to be enough room for all these petals. And then so it looks something like this, which is this one. Which looks fairly fine. Let's zoom it out. Still looks reasonable. Okay. So this way we get to also show off a lot of the titty. It'll be strapless here. We get shoulders, the arms, just simple stuff like that. This can allude to a mouth. And then now, how do we want the pot she's in to look? Oh, I can't. I forgot her tail. How silly of me. Okay. It's a fairly bushy big tail. Not that shape. So we gave her some tiggle bitties. Which also means that in order for the foxtail to stand out, actually, let me change to when I erased. There we go. That's what I want. Now we add the tail. So foxtail, we'll make it rather big because that's kind of just how all that's going to want to be. Yeah, and then all the foxtails have that little bit there. And it stick out like that, and then of course it'll be able to move. So maybe we want to do the inverse of this. So actually, hold on. I don't think I need to completely draw the inverse. Let me just flip it. Why is it? There we go. So it could be something like that instead. Maybe. What else is in this that is making it do this? I don't know why you would be over there. Okay, so maybe something like that, and it's capable of moving. Quickly save, and then if we flip it, we can keep it on that side, which I think works better. Yeah, I think that's a better shape for what we're looking at. In order to make sure it looks extra fluffy, we'll just add a couple of the points at crucial curves. That should help it stay looking fluffy. And for the color area change, something like that. Delete the underneath. Put that part here. Do this. Just make it a little offshoot. And then up here can have those bits if we want them. Okay. Nice, big, thick, fluffy tail. Although maybe too thick at the tip. Oh. Just let me... do something along those lines in order to make it look more like a foxtail. Okay. Okie dokie. Okily dokily. So, this is what we are looking at. I just realized I may as well, I think, make the ear a bit bigger and more prominent, as well as even by making it symmetrical. All right. So now the plant pot. Question is, so here's our buns search. What if we look for cool plant pot? Ooh, something like this could look really interesting. Could go with the geometric shapes. So we're trying to make it a little bit more detailed. First things first, let me move everything up now that we know our perfect height. So if we were to go with the geometry example, probably look something like that, which is not awful. But I think I did quite like the look of this guy here. Anything else interesting? There's cylinders. I think I'm going to use this guy. But it looks like it's a sail, so we'll see if we can just copy the image in. Oh, yeah, that worked. Perfect. So now we have this reference to look at. Where we would... Where's the layer? Okay, so that was the layer I was using there. Okay. So you would make your round lip. You would go inward and then outward. Then you would have fancy little stands. This does look a lot like a cauldron. It is almost too much like a cauldron. Or it just kind of looks like she's coming out of a cauldron. But it's not a terrible look. And it adds a lot more visual interest to what is going on. If I move it up a bit and then make it a bit less wide, I think that actually looks pretty good. I think that might be the shape we want. Oh. Stop moving shit. Krita, just erase, god. Erase, god damn it. Alright, thank you. Something along these lines certainly be much more interesting. And then, you can put whatever pattern you want on it. Yeah, that is great. So, turn that down, zoom in a bit, and then draw it in. That's about the angle I'm looking at. So this is also a three-dimensional object. So the lip has dimension in addition to going down. Very rotund and round. big on top, and then we'll go into a flatter bottom. And we will actually, let's make this harsher. I think that might be a little bit too much. So we'll just make that harsher there, and a more subtle line in. I just keep briefly tapping my mic with my pen every time I flip it, because so that's what you're supposed to do when you're an art streamer. Tap your microphone with your pen because it's too close to your face. Alright, flip horizontally, move over. Nude. Then merge with below. Put that back on. So now, do I just keep these as the simple shape or add some detail to them? The question always is. Because I think keeping them fairly straightforward is a good idea. I think that makes them a little bit too boring. Well, I could also give them the same vine motif. That's not a bad idea. No, actually, I think I will just follow my shape closely and let them be amorphous shapes, because they probably won't be shown very often anyway. Probably. Alright, yeah, we'll have it be something like this. Then from this also attaches make this a little bit, just a little bit shorter. Actually, with the way this is shaped, bottom bit should be a lot rounder. Yeah. this guy back up a bit. And we will dupe this guy and move him as well. Over to here. Smaller one underneath. It goes in like that. And then this goes up like that. Let me draw this guy back here. Like this, and move him back. So in theory, it would look like that. There's the pot. There's the pot. Turn off the sketch. I have a better idea. What if, instead of an additional circle on this middle guy down here, I make a diamond. Make a little diamond. Yeah, so all sort of point in a bit. Do that. And that. And they go up there. I'm not making this look good. Alright, what if I scrap a lot of that? Taking this one, empty that. We take this guy. Erase here. And we simply make it a cauldron. And then we'll put a pattern on it. this guy's the same, he would actually look something like this. Alright, I've decided against feet because I don't want to deal with that right now. We're just designing. Maybe I'll put feet on the illustration. Who knows? We'll figure it out. But as of right now, we will just leave it as this. So we will add some cracking in order to make it look a little bit more interesting. And then we'll add a quick pattern. Nothing crazy. Pretty much just like a simple noise pattern that's not actually got any particular meaning. It's just shapes. Okay. Flower pot. And that's what we're looking at. That's what we're looking at. Yep. Now where's the tail? Here's the tail. Move that. Remove part of the pot. Move part of the tail. Over here. Oh, I created a little bit of an accidental tangent over yonder, so I'll fix that by moving the tail a bit. So tangents, while generally are okay, they will create a little bit of a visual clutter, and it just almost always looks, well, a tangent can look fine, but it'll always look better without it. So a tangent is just sort of, if you have a line that comes in contact with something like that, it'll always look better to make it not intersect at like a specific point or line to line. Having the overlap will always make it look better. Just a little quick tip. And then I think this is good. Let me erase everything down here. Alrighty. So I'm going to merge the layer with all the lines on it. So now all the lines are together. They are one. And for reference, this is where we started. And then what we will do, we will select everything here. All the green stuff. And then we will put all of that in there. So and then we'll use the brush. Oh, hello. There we go. To fill in. Fill in the bits. Alright, and then we will clear this out of here. We'll just grab our general skin tone. Hand is not closed, feels bad. Hand is also not closed. Alright, select grow by 5, shift back. And manually add the hand. Perfect. And then we're going to go with this hair color. Which also ended up being the color of the tail. Select grow. I'm making a new layer for each color, by the way. Just a good idea to do that, especially if you're going to do what I'm about to do here in a second, which is gradients. Oh. Because if they're on their own layers, you don't actually have to make the whole selection again. You can just do a little bit. Alright, let me take that bit. I'm going to select the little box that I can't draw outside the layer, so you can see it's only on this layer here that I'm making. So that I can make this more particular. We can also use that for the inside of this ear bit here. And then we do the big swatches of yellow. New layer. So the bright yellow eyes. And get these all in here. Close all of these little guys. Select grow by 5. That works just fine, helps make it pop. The yellow really does pop and stand out, huh? So this is the skin layer. Do the whites of the eyes there. So we'll put skin there. Okay. And then so I was thinking of a bit of a gradient down here, but of what color is the question. So if the pot's going to be this, if I use this seed color on this. So I select the dress, make it so that nothing else can go through, hit gradient. Alright, well I will still use a selection actually, it looks like, because I totally forgot about the tentacle bits. So if I do this, how does that? That doesn't look terrible. What if I put it in a bit more of like a complementary color, like a red spectrum? It does look more interesting for sure. I'm just going to come in here and manually make these green again. All right. So adding a soft gradient from a little bit of a red to the green is good. Because to be fair, I could also do it from the yellow, but I think that would draw too much attention there and it would be a darker color. Would look nicer, and then we will take all of the ones facing this direction. We will take the same gradient. And then we will do the same the other direction. And let's do the same gradient. So it adds a little bit more interest there, I think. So this dividing line that I made, I want it to be a bit of a different color. So if I just make it yellow. Yeah, that little band of yellow I think actually looks a lot better than if it wasn't there. Oh, actually, you know what though, on these teeth, I think I may revert them back to the original green they had. Select, grow 5, original green. And then let me actually also quickly fill this in because I didn't expand far enough earlier, so a couple of these just have a little bit of white peeking through. If we select the teeth, actually let's select the teeth alternating, and if we put the red on what would be the tip of the tooth, it'll look a lot cooler because it'll look kind of like a little bit of blood, like they've eaten something. Gradient from this direction. Then we gradient from this direction. Looks pretty okay. So from, like, while it's small, it still reads pretty okay. Now we quickly take the pot and we make the pot also have some stuff. So select grow. Fill. Then what kind of color should we have underneath? So we can take some of this earthy tone and make that sort of the fill. Yeah, so if we move this here. We fill it in with this. Looks pretty okay. Yeah, and then we select. All right, I will use the wand. And clear that out. So it all fits on. And we take this and just grab an airbrush. And we'll just add a bit of a lighter gradient on top. Then we go back to our other brush and make sure the dark parts are still going to be dark. Soft. Then we will add a little bit, specifically with the cracks. Set this to overlay. Then that, oh, is now the pot. So that's what it looks like from afar. The silhouette is still recognizable. Yeah. So that is what I would do to design a VTuber. That is my entire process. And with that, I have now designed a sunflower plant girl fox. And ta-da! I think it looks pretty alright. It's pretty eye-catching. The eye, obviously, the more detailed and the bigger resolution version would look a lot better. But as far as a concepting drawing, this looks perfectly fine. I will actually, one last thing before I go, sometimes it's prudent to zoom in on details so that you don't forget about them. So what I will do is I will take the iris but I'm still on the other brush. I will simply take what the iris would look like and point out that she would have a large center iris, or a center pupil. Then you do the flower eye, which I love. Get a little bit of these dotting to remind that it's going to look a little bit more sunflowery. Put in the yellow. Probably make it a bit darker around the edges behind the petals, more dark than that. So the edge would be around the petals there. You can go darker, even more saturated for beyond that. So then this is what sort of the iris would look like. So I would make sure to leave a little note. This is what the eye looks like. And I might even do something like this. It kind of shows what it might look like in the eye socket. And hell, actually, so what color of lipstick and eyeshadow should we do? Because now that we're here, we might as well actually add a little bit of the makeup, because that is something I very briefly forgot. Because we could do green. Let me add this on. Not all foxes are sassy. That is a microaggression. Oof. Man, fox girls getting microaggressed in my chat? That's rough. Okay. So if we wanted to just have them be green, it would sort of look like that. And if we wanted to just test out what the other colors might look like, going through the ranges, the hue shifts. Wow, it quite pops actually as like the purplish, in the purple range. Because it pops so much, I think we might keep that. Doing green eyeshadow too. Yeah, well, I was thinking about it, because I just wanted to try out whatever color, but I think that the purple actually pops so much with the color palettes we've chosen, like a saturated purple, that going with that will actually really draw focus to the mouth and the eyes, which on a VTuber is very, very important because, like we mentioned, things that, you know, breathe life and make it look alive, you want the people's eyes to be looking at those parts. So you've got your sympathetic motion to help, you know, the overall picture look like it's alive. You get this breathing, and then drawing attention to the eyes with the detailed yellow iris, with the purple eyeshadow, as well as the mouth with the what's going to be moving purple lips. So I think that this is the correct color. So I think this is going to be the final design, at least for now. If anything else comes up when we pull it up again, then we can make additions. But I think, yeah, because even if we zoom out pretty far, this is still quite good. And yeah, I think it looks just fine. Zooming in, it doesn't look too weird or anything. And that is a finished design. So that is how I would go through all the entire process to just, oh, I have an idea. Here's a fox and a sunflower, and I just merge them into a VTuber idea. And you can do this with anything. You don't have to use a plant and an animal. You could use an object. You can use fungus, you know, whatever idea it is. Just look up a reference, and if it helps, I would say write down attributes that that thing has. So if I was to pull up the reference of the fox again, I would write down, okay, so it's got dark fur, it's got a white tail, or a white tail tip, it's got a tail, it's got big pointy ears. You know, like a fox girl is pretty simple. That's pretty known. You just give them the attributes of a fox. And then, you know, we have the sunflower. What are the attributes of a sunflower? You have the yellow petals. You have the large black area, which is sort of where the seeds are. You have spindly stems with big leaves. You've got like a pot that's carrying everything. So if you just make the list and then combine the list and draw what is on the list, there's a good chance it'll come back and all coalesce into something, and you can strike things that you don't like from the list, or just be like, I want to take this from this and that from that. And this is really only an example of 2 things that I took from. You can take from 100 things if you really want. And it's probably going to be very busy if you take from 100 things, but you see what I'm saying? So this is like the simplest, most bare bones version of this, but you can absolutely take it a lot farther. If you have 4 or 5 things that you like, you can take all of them, put them up, and sort of make what would be an idea board, where again, you just list attributes of each one, and then you take away the references, and you're just left with the words. And then you combine the words, or you strike out words that you don't like. And the biggest one is you find words that overlap. So, for example, one word that actually overlapped here was actually yellow, because the fox had yellow eyes. And then I was going to give her yellow eyes, and sunflower eyes are yellow. So it makes sense that your primary color is the same as your eye color for a VTuber design. And then, so that was a quick and easy overlap, and then that's a slam dunk. If you find those overlaps, those are your guaranteed, you put that in the character design. And from there, it's all optional for the rest of it. And that's how I design, at least, and how I would recommend you give the designs a try. But without further ado, that is it for the design portion of this. Thank you very much for joining, and we will be illustrating this very VTuber in the way that you would need to in order to have it cut up in separate layers so that somebody can take it into Live 2D and rig it for animation just like how I just move automatically. So it's a very particular way you have to draw it, and we're going to be doing that on Saturday. We're going to be spending the whole day, and we'll see if we get the entire illustration out of the way on that day. Quite likely not. It might take another day, but that is what we are doing on Saturday. This is this exact VTuber design that I made here today, and that is what we will be making. So thank you very much for tuning in. Make sure to have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will catch you on Saturday. Bye-bye.